Turning 70 felt like a milestone, a moment to be surrounded by love, laughter, and family. I waited all day for a call from my son. The phone stayed silent. No card, no message, not even a happy birthday. But just a week later, he called me full of urgency, not to wish me well, but to remind me about the $30,000 tuition bill that was due. Tell me, have you ever been forgotten by the very person you sacrificed for? Stay with me, because what I did next taught him a lesson he'll never forget. Birthdays never mattered much to me when I was younger, but 70 felt different. It wasn't just another year, it was a marker of everything I had lived through. The struggles, the sacrifices, the quiet victories. I baked myself a small cake that morning, set the table with one plate, and poured coffee into my favorite chipped mug. I wasn't expecting a party, but I was expecting something. A phone call, maybe a visit from my only son. The hours passed slowly. Morning turned to afternoon, then to evening. I checked my phone again and again. Nothing. I scrolled through social media and saw photos of my son with his friends at a bar the night before, smiling, raising glasses, celebrating someone else's birthday. My chest ached in a way I can't describe. 70 years of life, and my son couldn't remember one simple call. I told myself maybe he was busy, maybe he'd call the next day. But deep down, I knew the truth. He had forgotten. Still, I pushed the hurt aside. I cleaned up the untouched cake, washed the lone plate, and told myself not to cry. A week later, the phone finally rang. His voice was rushed, distracted. "Hey, Mom, listen, I need you to transfer the tuition money. The semester's starting, and it's $30,000 this time. Can you get it in by Friday?" My hand tightened on the phone. $30,000. I had worked decades to save that money, skipping vacations, wearing the same old clothes, taking extra shifts when I could. It was my nest egg, meant to secure his future. But in that moment, all I could think about was the silence of my birthday. I asked softly, "Do you know what last week was?" He hesitated. I don't know." "What?" "My 70th birthday?" The line went quiet. For a second, I thought the call had dropped. Then he cleared his throat. "Oh, sorry, Mom. You know how busy things get. Anyway, about the tuition." That was the moment something in me shifted. For years, I had been the giver, the one who sacrificed without question. But now, staring at the bank statement on my desk, I realized giving without gratitude had turned into enabling. And I decided if my son could forget me, I could forget his tuition. When I hung up the phone, my heart was pounding. Not from anger, but from clarity. For 70 years, I had lived to give. First to my parents, then to my husband, and most of all to my son. But there comes a point when giving without acknowledgement stops being love and starts being a lesson never taught. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my checkbook open. The tuition form sat in front of me, blank, waiting for my signature. My pen hovered, then lowered, then rested back on the table. "No," I whispered aloud. "Not this time." The next morning, my phone rang again. My son's number flashed across the screen. "Hey, Mom," he said quickly, skipping any greeting. "Did you get the money sent yet?" "The school's on me about the deadline." I took a breath. "No, I didn't." A pause. "What do you mean, you didn't?" "I mean," I said slowly, carefully, "I'm not paying it this time." The line crackled with stunned silence before his voice exploded. "What? Mom, you can't do this. I need that money. How am I supposed to stay enrolled?" I steadied my tone. "You're 21 years old enough to remember your mother's birthday, old enough to say thank you once in a while, old enough to stand on your own 2 feet. He sputtered, his words tripping over each other. "This is ridiculous. One missed birthday call, and you're going to ruin my education?" I felt a pang of guilt, but I held firm. It's not about one birthday. It's about years of taking without giving back. About forgetting that money doesn't appear out of thin air. It came from my hard work, my sacrifices. "And if you can forget me, I can forget that check." His voice turned sharp. "So that's it? You're just cutting me off? After everything?" I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "After everything, I've realized that giving you everything has taught you nothing. Maybe this will..." For a long moment, the only sound was his breathing, heavy and angry. Then the line went dead. I set the phone down, my hands trembling. Tears burned my eyes, but I let them fall. It wasn't easy. A mother's instinct is always to provide, to protect. But sometimes real love means stepping back and letting the lesson hurt. That evening, I made myself another small cake, not for my birthday, but for courage. I cut a slice, sat at the table, and whispered to the quiet house, "Happy lesson, not happy birthday." Because for once, the gift I was giving wasn't money, it was responsibility. And deep down, I knew it might be the most valuable lesson of all. The following week, the calls started again. First short, angry bursts, then longer, desperate ones. I let most go to voicemail. "Mom, they're saying I can't register for classes without tuition paid. I'm going to lose my spot. Another day. My friends don't get it. They think I'm being careless. I told them you'd always covered it. Now I look like a fool," each message cut deep, but I stayed firm. Because behind the anger, I heard something new. Fear. The kind of fear that comes when the safety net finally disappears. By Friday, he came knocking on my door. He looked different. Not the confident, carefree young man who used to brush off responsibilities, but a boy with worry in his eyes. "Mom," he said, his voice softer than I'd heard in years. "We need to talk." I set down my knitting and gestured for him to sit. He slumped into the chair across from me, running his hands through his hair. "I can't believe you're doing this," he muttered. "They won't let me back in without payment." $30,000, Mom. I don't have that kind of money." I studied him for a moment. "Neither did I, when I was your age. But I worked. I saved. I sacrificed. That's how I got it," he groaned. "You don't understand. Things are different now." I leaned forward. "No, what's different is you. You've been handed things without seeing the cost. That's why you forgot my birthday, because in your mind I was just there. A wallet, not a mother." His eyes widened, shame flickering across his face. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I asked gently. "When was the last time you asked how I was doing? Or thanked me for the years I worked late shifts so you could have new sneakers, new books, new chances? You forgot my 70th birthday, son. 70 years of life, erased in one busy day. Do you know how that feels?" He dropped his gaze, unable to answer. I let the silence stretch before I spoke again. "This isn't punishment. It's perspective. If you want that degree, you'll figure out how to earn it. Loans, jobs, scholarships, whatever it takes. Because until you value what's given, you won't respect what's spent." His shoulders slumped. "So, you're really not going to pay?" I shook my head. Not this time. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just sat there, staring at the floor, the weight of reality pressing down on him. Later, I watched from the window as he walked back to his car, slower than usual, like every step carried a burden he wasn't used to. And though my heart ached, I whispered to myself, "Good, let him carry it. That's how he'll learn." Because sometimes the hardest lessons aren't taught in classrooms. They're taught at the kitchen table, with silence, with absence, and with a mother's firm love. The weeks that followed weren't easy. I knew he was struggling. His messages turned from anger to exhaustion. "Mom, I picked up shifts at the campus cafe." Another week. "I applied for a scholarship. Don't know if I'll get it, but I'm trying." For the first time, I could hear effort in his voice, not entitlement. One Saturday, he stopped by again. He looked different, eyes tired but sharper. He carried a bag of groceries in one hand. "These are for you," he said awkwardly, setting them on the counter. "I figured. It's the least I can do." I smiled, touched more by the gesture than the food itself. "Thank you," I said softly. We sat down at the kitchen table. He didn't dodge my eyes this time. "Mom," he began. I was wrong. About a lot of things. I thought the money was just there. I never thought about what it cost you or how much you gave up so I could have what I had. I stayed quiet, letting him speak. He took a breath. "When I couldn't pay tuition, I panicked. I blamed you. But the truth is I never even said thank you. Not once. You're right. I treated you like a wallet, not a mom." Forgetting your birthday was just the clearest proof of that. His words cracked something inside me, but not in a painful way, in a healing way. I reached across the table, covering his hand with mine. "I didn't stop the tuition out of spite," I said. "I did it because I love you too much to keep letting you take without learning. You needed to see the weight of responsibility, because one day I won't be here to carry it for you." His eyes shone with tears. "I see it now. And I'm sorry, Mom. Really sorry." Bien, for the first time in years, I believed him. That evening, he stayed longer than usual. He cooked dinner with me, asked me about my childhood, even laughed at old stories he'd never bothered to hear before. It felt like having my son back. Not the boy who demanded, but the man who appreciated. As he left, he hugged me tight. "Happy late birthday, Mom," he whispered. 70 years is something worth celebrating. I won't forget again. Tears blurred my vision, but I smiled. That's the best gift you could give me. In the end, he didn't lose his education. He scraped together loans, jobs, and help from his advisor. It wasn't easy, but it made him stronger, and I knew $30,000 couldn't have bought the lesson he learned or the closeness we regained, because sometimes the most loving word a parent can say isn't yes, it's no. And in that no, a son finally saw his mother not as a bank account, but as a person worthy of love, respect, and yes, a remembered birthday. In the end, it wasn't the $30,000 that mattered. It was the lesson. My son thought tuition was just another bill I'd cover, but he forgot that behind every dollar was a sacrifice. Behind every gift was a parent's love. By saying no, I gave him something more valuable than money, perspective. And in return, I got something I had longed for, gratitude, respect, and the simple joy of hearing him say, "Happy birthday, Mom." Sometimes the greatest gift we can give our children is not paying their way, but teaching them to walk their own. So let me ask you, have you ever had to teach someone you love a hard lesson by stepping back? What did it change in your relationship? Share your story below and stay tuned for more tales where love and lessons walk hand in hand.